So hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for Henry Stewart and Nish. Thanks for an awesome talk about creative operations, our favorite topic. When I was asked to think about a topic, one of the things that I see all the time, and I think could really be a great way of looking at what we do just in general and in business, is to think a little bit about evolution and adaptation, and that's great that it's been a theme so far. So my topic is on Darwinism and creative operations. So just to give you a quick background on me, so I'm Steve Kalalian, I'm the CEO of Industrial Color Brands. We are a creative production company. We've been around for 27 years, and we're very deeply involved in the actual creative process, as well as the workflow and efficiency process. And one of the things that we did in 2003 was we really saw that there was this huge need for this concept of creative acceleration. So as a digital capture supplier to large brands, we said, hey, why don't we use this thing called the internet and have things that are shot digital, keep them digital, and make them very efficient through the workflow and make them collaborative, and actually use metadata to give them intelligence, and some of the things that are now mainstream and expected were very new back then in 2003 when the internet was very slow and applications weren't nearly what they were today. So this DNA of creative acceleration has been part of our company for a long, long time. It's not really a sales pitch about Industrial Color, but this is actually our kind of roadmap and our evolution for the last 27 years. And we've really followed all the big technological trends that have led to us having to adapt and our entire industry having to adapt. And the real quick call outs will be in 91 when we started, desktop publishing was kind of really new. So we were very involved in desktop publishing. And then all of a sudden in 96, Photoshop version 3 came out, and it was like mind-blowing, layers and the things that we could do with Photoshop, and all of a sudden we were doing high-end retouching, and isn't that amazing? The expectations also around what was capable was a big deal at that time. And then in 2001 it was just game over when digital cameras came out, 16 megapixels. We said, this is absolutely amazing. What a way to accelerate production for our clients. So we got very involved in providing those services. In 2007, another big evolution was the digital video. Red came out with an amazing camera that could shoot 4K video, again changing the game. And you can start to see the themes happening here, where technology comes out with something that can build this or enable all kinds of new creativity. And everyone in this room and around us, we're scrambling to kind of figure out, is it going to happen? How's it going to happen? What do I need to do? How do I adapt to this? Some ignore it, and then some embrace it. And I really want to kind of concentrate on the embracing part for this presentation. There's a few more things that we've been involved in, is CGI, some of the things, e-commerce has been very, very big, as you know. And right now, one of the hot buttons for us is augmented reality. We think that's just here and is getting there in the next by the end of this year and into next year will be probably one of the key parts of the 360 marketing cycle. So enough about us. Thank you for paying attention to that. So a quick look back when we kind of got into the business to where we are now. I don't know if I'm sure there's some folks in the room that remember the good old analog drum scanners that cost $150,000, and you could get maybe a scan in about 10 minutes. So we've gone from, there's big trends. The big trend was analog, everything analog, to everything digital. The other big trend in media is we kind of went somewhere to look at media, and now media is everywhere. And these are sort of these big quantum shifts. And also with consumption. It was, consumption was physical. You went to a place and you bought something, and now it's completely virtual. So one of the things that, and like it or not, we absolutely have to adapt, which is the theme of the presentation today, is all about adaptation. Or else we go the way of the dodo bird, unfortunately. I was actually reminded that this was a bad image because I think Nosferatu actually lives. I don't know if anybody can correct me on that. I forget what the jury is on that one. So let's talk a little bit about Darwin. I think I'm getting cut off on that side, but that's okay. A little bit about Darwin. It's really not who's the stronger or more intelligent. It's really the people that adapt to change that's made the big difference in life. And I think that's around us ridiculously today with the amount of change and the velocity of change and the logarithmic exponential rate of it. So let's take a real quick back to science class real fast. Admittedly, I had to go back and kind of relearn all this stuff. So basically, there's a few key things that happen in natural selection, which is that there's, we all evolve into like crazy different types of species from very small genetic mutations that basically give you an advantage to compete, beat your enemy, survive, and reproduce. That's how it works. And it's just crazy how that's led to this wide range of adapted species in all kinds of environments. And I think that's a really key word, which is environment. No matter whether it's the desert or 2,000 feet under the sea or in some tropical rainforest, these various species evolved over millennia to be able to survive in the ridiculous environments. And that's what's I'd like to kind of have a little takeaway there. And at the top of the food chain is us. So we wound up with the best adaptation, and there's one thing that really resonates and actually relates to why we're all here at the Henry Stewart Dam Convention. So the reason why Homo sapiens kicked ass and killed their foe of Homo erectus is they basically we all have a slightly more intelligent brain. It's a little bit bigger, and what it allowed us to do was actually create meaningful, specific tools. And that was the big advantage. Whereas Homo erectus was like, I've got my stone tool that can kind of shred meat. The Homo sapien was like, no, actually, I figured out how to make tools to get fish and birds and bears and whatever else, and saber-toothed tigers. So what it did was it allowed me way more choices to eat, kind of like Manhattan. And as a result, we're around and we can actually travel further, eat foods in different geographies, so we were able to spread out from Africa to populate the entire world. So when you look back at what made the difference, it was tools. And we're here with again, I'll repeat this, with a whole host of really amazing vendors out there that make great tools to do different things. So let's take a look at creative acceleration. This is the word, and tools equals speed. So if you want to do something faster, if you want to get things done more efficiently, if you want to, thrive out there against the competition, speed is going to be the big differentiator. I have a little experiment, and I hope this doesn't come off as stereotypical, but I've chosen 3 stereotypical people. I've got the librarian on the left, I've got the Williamsburg hipster, I probably know that guy, and I've got the classic construction guy. We've got an assignment, simple assignment. We've got to put a 2-inch screw into a piece of wood. So at a show of hands, who would pick the librarian? Good, I got 0. Hipster, Williamsburg hipster, anyone? Come on, give him a break. He's trying so hard. I got one. 2, all right. And how about the construction guy? Okay, cool. I was going to do Chris Pratt as the construction guy, but anyway. So now I'm going to give each one of those a tool. So the librarian, I'm going to give her the power tool, and the hipster is going to get the hand tool, and the construction guy is going to get the multi-tool, the Swiss Army knife. Now, show of hands, who would pick the construction guy? All right, I got 1. Cool. Cool. All right. The hipster? I get 1 or 2. Librarian. Awesome. So just to totally, work this to death, we did a little experiment back at Industrial Color. I have to credit Matt Wilkins, our DP, and Nick, our model. And just to give a little example of what it really means, is I just wanted to kind of feel what that means in terms of time and energy and waste. So when you think about tools, what's the big deal? Or that tool, this tool, they're all the same. It's a tool, it does the job. Or maybe we don't even need a tool. But what it shows is at the end of the day, and this goes on, by the way, for about another 30 seconds. And the multi-tool guy, unfortunately, our construction worker actually never finishes because he sort of cut his hand on this poor tool. But maybe we're almost there. There we go. We've got 43 seconds. And construction worker guy, really pissed off right now. He is I think he's put in his resignation, and we're almost done with him. And he's done. Okay. So what were the results? Real quick math. Our librarian with a great power tool, 5.5 times, and that's being generous, 5.5 times more effective, I mean conservative. So she can get 5.5, 6 times more work done than the hipster or the construction guy. And the construction guy really, he's probably got great capability, but the problem with superstars is if you don't give them great tools, they're going to be gone. And I think that's another problem that I see companies face a lot, which is where you've got really talented people, but they're sort of suffering from either no tool or a tool that's just not cutting it, or it's hard to use or whatever it is, and they just give up, especially creatives. So if a creative has a technology that they don't like and it doesn't make sense to them, they're definitely going to not use it, and then all that money and energy and expense that everybody went into and the huge RFPs were just sort of meaningless, unfortunately. So now it's not about the one job. We have a huge job. We have to build a house. We need tools for every part of the job: concrete, framing, HVAC, et cetera. So it's not just about one. We need many tools. Is what this is about. And again, I hammer home the importance of not looking for the one-size-fits-all tool. It just isn't out there, and I've seen so many people try to do that, settle on something, and then, unfortunately not get there. So there's a few tool types. I kind of break it down into 4 categories. One is the cursory category, and you know what that is because there's probably 30 applications that your people have downloaded from the internet that snuck in past IT and is all over the place, and they help one person do sort of something half-assed, and then it's just sort of where's the files that guy worked on or that woman worked on, and I don't know because they downloaded some file and they're using some application that nobody approved. There's a ton of those out there. Then there's the Swiss Army, which is like, hey, we do everything. We've got a saw, we've got a screwdriver, we've got a corkscrew, but they all suck. And then we've got the hand tool, which is good. We like the hand tool, works, not too bad, but it's okay for small jobs. But if you really have something big to do and you're enterprise and you're pro, you really need to go and think about the power tool. And obviously it's a metaphor for software and other processes that are out there, but I think it's a great metaphor, and that kind of makes a lot of sense. So why don't we just do it? Like, what's preventing most of us from actually doing it? By the way, if anybody knows what that contraption is called, raise your hand, because, close. It's a moss-covered 3-handled family gradunza, AKA thingamajigger. I loved this when I was a kid. It's like the greatest thing I ever saw in life. So why don't we buy the tools we need? There's a reason. So let's go right back to evolution. The very thing that enabled us to survive is totally working against us today. So our reptilian brain, which is the little one and like right at the stem there, is based on fight or flight. It's survival instinct. It wants to avoid discomfort at all costs. And as a result, we have accumulated as humans incredible amount of biases that prevent us from making good decisions. Not to say anybody in this room is making bad decisions, at all. I mean, we're all the same, but we're just programmed to avoid. And that's one of the problems is we have something called a negative bias, which is we would much rather not do something than to do something that could be a successful result. And you see that kind of proliferate throughout the organizations, as well as our behaviors, like we all have it. So I think that the lesson here is, if there is one, is to really think about those biases and try to put those kind of emotional reactions aside and think about things very, very logically. And there's actually a great, this is a great exercise for me because, and at the end I have a list of acknowledgements. There's a great book that I unfortunately don't remember the author, that deals with all the things that modern people really need to understand about their basic human biases to sort of rethink, how we approach some of our decision making. The future is going to be intense. Content channels, tech, the Internet of Things, mixed reality, machine learning, chatbots, robots, all this stuff is really happening. And the one thing I can say in 27 years is whenever you get a lot of like, I don't believe it. I'll see it when I believe it when I see it kind of attitude. Except for 3D TV, almost everything that was sort of promised to happen pretty much happened. And there's so much energy around things like AR and VR. There's so much, kind of optionality on what you can do with it, that those things are really happening, and all these other things are very much happening. So what does that mean? There's this huge omni-channel explosion that's continuing every day. It's going to be much bigger than before. And this is actually an interesting graphic, and I'm almost done. One of the top marketing tactic is all about content marketing and big data and mobile, but content's number one. So content. That's what we're here, managing on a daily basis, everyone in this room. So my parting words are, find the time sucks in your process, and Nish was great about kind of pointing that out, which is kind of break it down. And the thing I've seen people do is kind of they come to this Henry Stewart show and they say, I need to find this tool to do this one thing. And instead, and then they go booth to booth. Hey, do you do this thing? 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 Oh, you kind of do this thing? Instead, what I would suggest you do is like, what do you do? And what do you do? And what do you do? Oh, I actually have that problem. Let me learn a little bit more about that. And when you approach it that way, then you start to make sense out of what the different vendors are here doing. I remember the early days of DAM when we were here as a kind of a workflow tool in 2003 or 4, and we were just like, what are we doing here? And it was, it's become very, very different today, where there's a wide range of tools that are hitting the challenges of us, creative operations. It's so great to see Henry Stewart add this into the track, because this is really important stuff, and it's not getting. Just leave you with this last little bit. So I'm not going to go through this whole list, but if I fired off things to think about, it's about seeking out the ththings that take time. Even if it's like when you look at globaledit, for example, and the things that helps with digital photography and digital content, it's solving a problem that you might not otherwise think about. And like globaledit, there's many other applications that are solving these problems. And what's really important, and actually Claire said it so great in San Fran, is work with the vendors. Don't treat them as vendors, treat them as partners. You got to give them a lot of credit, and this isn't really self-serving, it's really everybody here. They're really specialized people that care a lot about creative production, that have invested time and money. It's not like there's 1,000 vendors in our world, there's 25. And they all do different things, so they're all very passionate about what they've built, and they need your support, and they need your feedback. So that's a really important thing. I'll leave this with you, but I think the other really big thing is really about spending. Is don't be afraid to spend. Don't be afraid to take chances, and think and go a bit rogue. And my advice is when I see it fails, it's got to go through a million layers, and it's got to go wide, and the entire organization has to prove everything. When I've seen it work beautifully is when somebody says, look, I've got some money in my budget. Let me do a test. Let me keep it small. Let me solve the big problems. Let me get some wins. And then all of a sudden, everybody wants it. Everybody in the organization wants it. So, there's a bunch of little Steve's tips and tricks. I'd be glad to go into any further detail with anybody. But I think my time is probably up, and you've probably heard enough of me. So I wanted to thank you very much for your time and interest, if you have any. So thank you.